Hi third graders, it's Mrs. Burke here with a video math lesson for you. Today's lesson we are going to practice describing the sides of polygons. So when we do that, we are going to work with 3 new vocabulary words. Some of the words you may be familiar with, while others might be new to you. So we're going to discuss them. The first word that I want to introduce to you describes sides that will never meet or cross, and those are called parallel. So parallel lines are lines that never cross or meet, and they don't form any angles. So here you can see a set or a pair of parallel lines. They're both moving in 2 directions because they're lines. And these 2 lines, if they continue going straight, will never, ever, ever cross. They almost look like railroad tracks, how the 2 tracks will never meet. They'll continue straight in a straight path forever. So those are known as parallel lines, okay? The next type of line is called an intersecting line. And the word intersect means to cross. You might have heard the word intersection in your town. 7th Street and Franklin, they intersect, they cross each other. So intersecting lines are lines that cross, or they will eventually cross or meet, and they do form angles. So as you can see here, I have this line going in an upward direction, and then I have this bottom line here. Now, right now, these lines are not currently intersecting, but because they're lines, I know that they continue on in both directions. And if I continue this line going forward, it eventually would cross over the other line. So since they are going to cross, these are going to be described as intersecting lines. Okay, now there's also a special type of intersecting line. Sometimes lines intersect and they form a perfect 90-degree angle, which is known as a right angle. When that happens, we give those lines a special name known as perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines are intersecting lines that cross or meet, and they form a right angle when they do so. So if you look at these 2 lines, I have one going straight up and down, and another line going straight across left and right. And when they met, they made that perfect 90-degree angle. So these lines are intersecting, but they're special intersecting lines known as perpendicular because when they intersected, they made a 90-degree angle. So those are the 3 vocabulary words. Again, we have parallel, lines that will never ever cross or meet. We have intersecting, which are lines that cross immediately or eventually they will cross or meet. And if they intersect at a 90-degree angle, they're not just intersecting lines, but they're perpendicular and intersecting lines. Okay? So we're going to do a quick little activity where we're going to look at some figures and describe the types of lines you see. But before we do that, I want to go over one last word that you might see a few times, and that's the word pair. Or sometimes you might also see the word set. And when you see that word, you have to know that a pair is a set of 2. For example, you might have a pair of shoes. There's 2 shoes, but it's just 1 pair. Or a pair of earrings. I have 2 earrings, but just 1 pair of earrings. And finally, socks come in pairs also. There's 2 socks that make 1 pair of socks. So sometimes you're going to see lines described in pairs, and that means 2 that go together to make 1 pair. All right, so we're going to look at a shape. And for extra practice, you can try and name the shapes that I'm showing you. This is a four-sided shape. We could give it a few names. One of the names we could name it is a quadrilateral because it has four sides, or we could also name it a trapezoid. But I want you to focus in on these two yellow lines or this pair of lines. And I want you to think about how we can describe those lines. Are these lines parallel, meaning they don't cross and they never will cross? Or are they intersecting, lines that already meet or will eventually meet? Because this top line is going straight across the top in a straight line, and this bottom is going in the exact same direction in a straight line, these two lines will never meet each other. They look like railroad tracks. So we're going to call this pair of lines parallel. So this is a pair of parallel lines. Okay? That's how we can describe that. The two lines make one pair of parallel lines. Now let's take a look at this polygon. This polygon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sides. And the sides are doing all different things. So we're going to focus on the sides that are highlighted in yellow. And when I look at these sides, I see right away at this vertex, they're touching. This line or line segment crosses this line. So since they're already crossing or meeting, I know that that set of lines or pair of lines can be called intersecting lines. So I know that right away. These are definitely intersecting because they're touching. But I want to ask myself one more question. Since I know it's intersecting, I want to think about that other word that can be used to describe intersecting lines, and that's perpendicular. In order to be a perpendicular line, you have to intersect and form a 90-degree angle or a right angle. And if I look closely at this angle is not 90 degrees. It's an obtuse angle or a stretched angle or an angle that's greater than 90 degrees. So since this is not a 90 degree, it is simply going to be called, or they will be called, intersecting lines. They are not perpendicular. They just intersect. All right, let's look at another one. This polygon over here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. So I know this is called a pentagon. And now I'm going to focus on this side here and this side here, or this pair of lines. And when I look at this pair of lines, I can see right here at the vertex, they're intersecting. They're touching or crossing each other. Even if I wanted to imagine that these had little arrows and they kept going, the arrows cross right into each other. So since they cross or meet, these two lines are intersecting. They meet. And when they're intersecting, I have to ask myself one more question. When they meet, do they create a 90-degree angle? And sometimes I'll have a clue because they'll put a box to show that they met at a 90-degree angle. But here I can tell that, look, right where they're crossing makes a perfect L shape. And that L shape is my signal that it met at a 90-degree angle. So since it did, not only is this pair of lines intersecting, but they can also be called perpendicular because they intersect at a 90-degree angle. So I can describe these lines in two different ways, intersecting and perpendicular. Okay. Now I'm going to take a look at a very familiar polygon here. which is a rectangle or a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides. And I'm going to look at the opposite sides. And I notice that this side here is going in a straight direction up and down, and same with its opposite side. And I notice that they don't cross, and they never will cross. So what do I call 2 lines or a pair of sides that will never meet or cross? We call them parallel, okay? And rectangles are special, just like squares, because look here, that's one set of parallel. But if I look at the other 2, I'll use the green. If I look at this side and this side, I notice something else. Those are also parallel. So rectangles don't just have one pair of parallel sides, but they have 2 pairs of parallel sides. And I remember I had another shape before that was parallel. Let's see if that also has 2 parallel sides. Here it was, my trapezoid. When I looked at my trapezoid, I remember the top and the bottom were parallel, opposite sides. Are the other opposite sides parallel? But let me see, they're not crossing right now. This side here doesn't touch this side, but I know they're lines, which means they'll continue in the same direction. So I'm gonna draw a little almost path to see where would this line keep going in a straight line like that, and where would this line keep going in a straight line like that. And what do you notice will happen if they both continue in a straight line? They're going to cross, or they're going to meet. So even though this pair of sides is parallel, the other opposite 2 ends are not parallel. These are intersecting. They won't intersect at a 90-degree angle, so they're not perpendicular, but they are going to intersect. So this quadrilateral only has 1 pair of parallel sides, where the square and a rectangle would have 2 pairs, okay? So those are different ways we can describe the shapes of our polygons by thinking about the types of lines they make. Parallel, perpendicular, which is a special type of intersecting line. So when you do your activity today, I want you to think about those descriptions. Do my lines go straight and never meet and cross? Then I'll call them parallel. Or do they cross and meet? Then I'm going to call them intersecting. But if I'm calling them intersecting, I'm going to ask myself one last question. When they intersect, do they create perpendicular lines? Okay? So those are the 3 things we want to be on the lookout for today. I hope you have fun with this activity. I'll also post a fun song for you in the next day or so that will help you to think about perpendicular, parallel, and intersecting lines. And continue with the great work you've been doing. And have a great day, Stewart School. Take care.